Hello, everybody, and welcome to Connections, a series of conversations between Margherita Crystal Lotus from the crystallotus.com and myself, Heidi Hornlein, from the powerofrelationship.com. We intend to connect people who are interested in relationships, in healing, and in expression. And we are so happy that you are here with us, and we really would love that you engage with us. Ask us questions, give us comments on the page here on Google+. And be sure, when you should listen to the replay, still leave your comments, leave your questions, and we will come back to you. So, hello, Margherita.
Hello, I'm here from Kingston, Canada, and we have spring here today. It's a little cool, but finally, after all of this ice and snow, I am so delighted that the summer almost is here.
Wonderful. So today we want to talk about money, and I wonder, Margherita, do you want to introduce the topic?
I would love to. And so the topic for today is relationship and the money ogre. So the title is somewhat interesting to me because many people today are experiencing problems discussing the money with their loved ones. So if you think about it, money can be a trigger in relationship problems, and sometimes it's really difficult to actually know how to deal with it. So in this discussion today, Heidi and I are going to discuss a bit about how to actually prevent money to be a problem in our relationship, and then learning in some ways how we can actually really talk about money as it is. So did you want to add something there, Heidi, about that?
I think this is a very great topic, and it needs to be talked about because as far as I see, many relationships, many people have problems with money, you know. And when I think about myself, it really was a big problem in almost all my relationships, beginning with my family of origin and then with my relationships, my intimate relationships. So I think it's really worthwhile to talk about it.
Yeah, many relationships, they start out, the problems may start out with, you know, spending too much money or who's going to pay for what. And it's a good discussion to have because money is sort of an independent entity that we can blame instead of actually taking a responsibility for actually to be clear with each other on all levels in a relationship how that's going to be handled. But then it's sort of an evil demon that comes into the relationship and then worry and all kinds of problems occur. And I wanted to start this discussion with how do you, let's say, if a partner is not bringing enough money, how do you deal with the balance of the income between two partners? I know, Heidi, you're the expert on relationship here. Do you have some kind of examples where what you can talk about related to that?
Yeah, I would begin with that. Money is not much different from other things in relationships. The problem normally appears that we are not clear in the beginning of a relationship how we want to handle the money. We don't talk about it. We have assumptions. We think it would just be fine, you know, and then it's not so fine. I mean, when you think about for thousands of years almost, since money exists more or less, it was a problem. It was a problem in the sense that normally, I'll go back to the question of women. Women didn't directly earn the money, but normally in our patriarchal society, it was the man who earned money. And women normally try to find a person who, for marriage, who earns a lot of money. There were times where men couldn't marry because they didn't earn enough money. So since we women are, let's say, allowed, or we want to earn our own money, things have a little bit changed. And now they come to these problems you are talking about. How is it if the partner doesn't earn enough money? And it is now a question for both of us. So the man can have a problem with his wife not earning money, or the woman can have a problem that her husband doesn't earn enough money. But this is completely a new thing, that this is a reciprocal problem, let's say.
Well, it's the, when women goes out in the workforce, and now she has to care for both the children in some ways and have the responsibility for also bringing in money, because the demands on relationships or families these days, I don't think that there is too many relationship or marriages that can afford to actually leisurely have only one income. There is a great deal of couples who really need to have the two incomes to actually make it work. And so it's like why I call this topic an ogre. It's this almost incredible burden that people feel about money. And of course, and when we get laid off at work, or we don't have that income, immediately the money concerns comes up. That's my feeling. I've had this experience too. And so what is at the bottom of that? And Heidi said that just a moment ago. It's like we are not clear. We are not clear really what money is, and we are not clear. We don't have a clear agreement in the relationship from the get-go. So do you agree with that, Heidi, that that's where we can start here today?
Absolutely. To get some clearance, how do you say? It's not clearance, clarity about what money really is and what role it plays in our relationship. And as I said before, that we need to be very clear about it in our relationship, to set a moment, preferably at the beginning of a relationship, to make an agreement what this money should be in our communion and how it should be handled.
Yeah, because if we are in a loving state from beginning, we fall in love with somebody, we really don't really think about money. Maybe if one partner pays for everything, then we think that that's going to be the role model for the rest of the relationship, whereas the other partner don't think that's fair. And so I think that the first 7 days, or the first hour, maybe even the first hour of meeting somebody, we make these assumptions of how everything is supposed to be, dependent on what happened in that first hour on that relationship. And I've experienced that for myself. And if I, let's say, started out, and here is some money for this, and here is, I could take care of the bill today, then I end up with having the expectation from the other partner that that's how I have to do it all the time from now on. Have you experienced that too?
Yeah, this can happen. And as I said before, if we don't make agreements, clear agreements at the beginning, these things sort of become habits. And then when we are unhappy with it, we normally don't talk about it, but we just say, oh, okay, it's like that. And we build up resentment. And this for sure doesn't help to have a good relationship. So I mean, it's with everything which we don't talk about in a relationship. It will hinder the relationship. It will diminish the relationship and might even lead to a serious problem in the relationship. So money is not really an exception, but it is more vital, let's see. It is more, how can I say, more evident, you know, that when, for instance, with my husband I had before, I always went to work 5 days a week and I brought in the money. And at the beginning he said he would find a job and he never did. And then I became resentful. And I said, please do something. Don't talk, but do something. And then there were offers. He could have taught German here in Italy, but he didn't. He had always a lot of excuses. And I got more angry and angry and angry all the time. But I was not yet really able to address it in a good way in the right time. So it means quite at the beginning.
Well, I remember sometimes, like from my childhood, that my father often asked, so how much did that cost? And then my mother sort of cowered a little, or didn't want to say right out how much it was. I don't know if it was the fear or he's going to give her a reprimand or something. So she really avoided to tell him, I think. And then later on, when we were grown up, much later on, she came and told me that she had this insight that when he asked how much did this cost, all she had to do was say it was so and so many kroner in Sweden, right, or dollars, without being scared that it's going to be rejected or that it's going to be judged that they were spending too much or whatever. So that's one little tip that I learned from my parents, that they overcome that to actually answer a question without being scared that it's going to be some consequences.
So probably your mother was afraid that what she spent was too much. So probably she was in a sort of mindset that she is living from the money of her husband and she doesn't have the right to spend it as she wants to. She still does, but she feels sort of awkward to admit that she is spending his money.
Right. Yeah, I think that was like that. And then, of course, money problem was quite occurring. I think on my mother's side, there was always lack of money. Anyway, so now my father being a doctor or studying to be a doctor when they were first together, that sort of brought the income level up a little bit, maybe compared to what her parents had it. So maybe that's also my father's great compassion. He's passed away now. But, you know, I think that was something that was left an impression on me, that money was a topic that it was tricky. We have to deal with it very delicately, maybe even tiptoeing around. And I inherited some of that into my first relationship when I got married at 19. And I didn't work, I studied, and my husband took care of all the bills. So I had a good time. I mean, I was taken care of. That have now changed, right? And then other problems coming out. And so what would you say, Heidi, about what can you do right off first when you meet? What is the first tip we can give the audience here? When they meet somebody new, how should they actually approach it?
I think the first thing is to become clear yourself how your relationship with money is. Because going back into my experience, I was married also with 19 and I studied. I even had Borsa di Studio, how do you call it? I got money from the state to study, and my husband was earning quite a bit of money. And so, you know, I was quite happy about that. And then later on, I did also work, taught other students and so on. And I helped him in his office. I kept the house. I was cooking and so on. And I still sort of thought I'm living off his money. And so when he came up with the idea that I didn't earn enough and that it is not fair that he's earning all the money, he could get me with that because I undervalued my own contribution to the couple. You know, I did things, and I did many things which were not paid, or I was paid in several occasions, but not as much as him. It was also the question, he was earning more, so he had a better tax class. So when I earn less, I go in a worse tax class. So what comes out of the real money at the end is much less. And I found myself at the end to be blamed for not to have earned enough money. Yeah, maybe I have not in the same amount, but it's not as I was really hurt by that, because I myself was not clear that my contribution in the relationship was at least worth the money I consumed. And I never went out to spend a great deal of money, you know, never. And even never without asking. I was always in communication. So the first thing is to know what is your own worth. And if you enter into a relationship where you don't earn the same amount of money as your partner, be very clear what is your role in the relationship, how you can balance it. And if it is really balanced, then be confident that it is okay that you earn less. Because you, maybe the woman is growing up the children, she is doing the household, the main part of it. And this has a value, you know.
I'm glad you mentioned the self-value, because that manifests everything else in our lives. If I have a low self-value, I'm going to create situations where other people are not going to value my effort. This is a big one, including money. But the money, it's like many tentacles that holds our mind's program, because it's like a survival thing. It's like a third entity that creeps in, and it's used so much in advertising and stuff like that to influence us to actually spend more than actually we need. And we are susceptible to that sometimes, even if you don't splurge. And then that leaves that little bit of guilt maybe, and that is a source of a great problem within the relationship if you don't have your own self-worth checked. So that's another thing that one can think about here.
Absolutely. The other thing which you are talking about now is also to be realistic with money. If you have in the family a certain amount of money, you just cannot spend more than you have. And if you do, it might have consequences. And if you do it without consulting your partner, I mean, it has consequences. So you really need to be aware what is in reality, what is possible for you. What amount of money can you spend? What amount of money comes in? And have money a common topic, you know? Even if one is earning more or the other is earning less nominatively of money, have this agreement, have this also this generosity between each other to allow the other to, you know, to spend the money in a certain frame, you know, not when you have 100 at disposition and the other goes out and buys, I don't know what, a car for 5,000, that this is not possible. I mean, with adult people, it should be quite clear that you need to be more realistic and allow your partner to, in some way, do the reality check with you. And you do it with him or her, you know.
I like that idea to have a reality check, because if a person can have a relationship where you can actually talk about that openly, then you can also talk about other things that's even more sensitive. But yeah, it's a tricky thing to know when we first meet a person, when we decide to live with them. It's a lot of things going on, and then the default level becomes where we are with the relationship to ourselves and the values we have. If you had money values from your family, let's say, that's penetrating also into how you see the money in your own relationship to your wife or your husband.
I'm wondering, Margherita, can you tell me a little bit about you, how in your relationship, I know you had several relationships, how the money question was handled there, and if there was some changes, if you did some changes, or was it all the same all the time? What was your relationship to money in your relationships?
You know, I mean, my father was a doctor, and my mother became a PhD, and so there was, we were 5 children, so there wasn't so much extra money over when I grew up, because both of them are studying, right? And my mother is home. And then later on, like when in the late teens, we moved so that we could have our own room. That was a big thing. So it wasn't like an immense affluence of money. It was, you know, tight. We couldn't buy like other people did buy things. And that creates sort of a sense of lack of, okay, I have to be really careful and I have to choose, but I really would like to splurge on that, but I can't. So that creates some kind of lack feeling. And when I got married first at the age of 19, and my husband took care of all the my expenses and whatnot, it was a joyous time, because during those, let's say, 3 first years, when I studied, we didn't really have any questions about that. He just took care of it. And then at the age of 22, I started working in a multinational company, and I made money. So then basically part of my salary went to the rent and the mortgages or whatever, where we lived, and so on. So that was sort of a more leisurely time when we both were employed. And and then later on, because there was other problem, I left for a second marriage, and there it was a different dynamics. And after that, I also now am by myself, and learning how to do that all by myself. So it's a very big shift from being supported and not having no support, and I have to do it all by myself.
This is a big shift, but I think it's a healthy one, because our generation, at least, the new generation is different, but our generation was still grown up in the belief that women can work, but it's not really so important. You know, women will have children, and who needs to work is the husband. But women are sort of, you know, if they want to, they can. So this makes sure that we are in a sort of dependency. Because as soon, in my first marriage, as soon as I didn't behave anymore as he wanted me to behave, you know, then he immediately came with the money thing. And I, not having a good job, a fixed job, but having some money here, some money there, but not a really reliable income source, he could make pressure on that, on me. You know, but in my case, he wasn't successful. It made me even more angry, and the decision to go away was even, you know, confirmed with that, and that I had to go through. I was absolutely without money for some time, and my mother gave me a little bit, and I created something myself. And from today, from today's perspective, I would say this was a salvation, because finally I entered into a different mindset that I have to care for myself, not rely on others. Because if I want to be free, I must be able to maintain myself and not to depend on somebody else. I think the newer generation is a little bit more, at least the young girls, in the idea that after school they would work. But, you know, at least here in Italy, I see many women, when they are married and have children, they don't care for themselves anymore, and they fall back into the old, I would say, non-agreements, because normally they don't make an agreement, it just happens. And then they come into the old dynamics that they are at home and they have left their job, they cannot go into it anymore, and so they are sort of bound in a prison to stay there, you know. They are not free to decide if they want to leave or not. And it's much more difficult than when you have children. So
yeah, I agree. It's like a really, really challenging situation, especially if there is other situations of abuse and patterns like that. One could really get down into the core patterns of our life, which in the end is good for us, I think, because we have to solve these situations sooner or later, but there's a lot of suffering involved, lots of suffering.
It is, but as you said, on the other hand, if we don't, this is a little bit of an idea of mine, but I think there are many people who would consent with that. If everything is wonderful, if we don't suffer, we will never grow up. We will never change anything, you know. And actually, in my relationship here in Italy, where we built the house I'm in now, where I have the retreat center, I was fine. Again, he earned the money, and I could do agriculture and explore a lot of things and so on. And then I felt well, but there was some urge in me who said, this is not your life. I understand it now, later. It was a sort of suffering of not being fulfilled. And so I created myself a situation where we split up. He reacted in an Italian way, blah, 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 you know how Italians are. And we immediately split up. And this, for me, has been the very, very big chance to finally take full responsibility for myself and for the house I'm in and for the animals I had. And I needed to really earn money on a consistent basis. And so I began to teach voice, you know, and so I discovered that I'm a very good teacher, that I'm a very good therapist for voice, that I understand how the voice is working, and so on. Later I did other studies. But if I hadn't created this moment in which I didn't have any resources except a full freezer with food and a car, and then I began with going to Rome and do a session in a choir for $50, and 30 already costed the journey, you know. So if I hadn't passed this difficult time, I would never be here where I am now. So difficult situations can be really a rocket start into a new life and into a liberated and self-responsible life. Some people might break in these situations and go into victimism and, you know, depression and whatever, and other people would use that as a catapult into a better life. And from my perspective from today, it is really a good thing that I needed to create my own life financially.
Yes, I think this is the message, perhaps the core message here, that we think it's all the money, but really to have come to that point where, oh my goodness, I have to take responsibility here and I can do it. It's really hard, but I can do it. So this is I think the core message here with this particular topic, that it brings us to the very edge of where we need to grow. And I like what you said. It helps us to grow up when we have a huge challenge like this. It really helps us. And I've done this also a number of times. It's not pleasant, but afterward it is like, free of that at last. And now I can explore what's in my heart, what I want to do. And like you, Heidi, you have your retreat and your man there and everything, and then you feel satisfied. So I too have the same experience with that. It's like a great sense of joy in my heart to actually know I can do it. I mean, I have to work with challenges every day like everybody else. It's not like you can go and say, no, I have everything finished. It doesn't work like that. Yeah. But if you see this situation with money as, yes, there is a gift behind this challenge, and I'm going to get to that. That for me has been the greatest insights or aha in the matter of money.
Yeah, I want to address another aspect of this, because nowadays there are many women who wouldn't at first sight identify with what we say, because they are achievers. They are earning a lot of money. I heard that at the moment women are, in America at least, are earning more money than men. So it seems to have turned around a little bit, you know, and they might not see the relevance in what we are saying. But I think it is still relevant, because I now talk a little bit about my experience in that. When I began to earn money, I was so keen on earn a lot of money, and even more and more and more and more. And that's what I see these women are in, and they sacrifice a lot of their feminine way of living by running behind the money. And then there come sort of a upside down of the situation. Then they often have husbands or partners who don't earn so much, and then there comes the same issue with different polarities, you know. Before it was the husband earning a lot of money and the wife not, and now often it's exactly the same, but the other way around. But it is, in the structure, it's the same thing. It hasn't really changed anything.
You have really described my last relationship that completed a few years ago. That I was the one who made the money, and he was supposed to do certain things that I thought was super clear, you know, building stuff and taking care of the property or whatever. And it ended up not becoming that. And yeah, so I could see that I'm a typical example of what you're saying. Typical example, because no matter how much money I brought in, it was spent, and that was it. And then we were facing quite a lot of debts because of that, even though you would say that it was good money made. So that's another problem. So that situation is now where I'm separated now, and I am all by myself, which I really love, because I can really study myself and then take responsibility for every single decision I make. And it's very satisfying to see that. It's a great joy to actually be able to be in a situation to actually take that responsibility for oneself. It's hard to do that in a relationship when you're
That's what I say. When you are alone, you can do a lot of good things, you know, and as soon as you enter into a relationship, the same question will come up. So it is not a solution if, as we said before, if the man is earning a lot and the women is less, or the other way around. These are not really choices anymore. We need to go to another level and to find a solution in another level. And I think we should talk about how this level could look like. When I look at the hour, we won't do that today, but we will talk more about this topic and really invite the listeners, the watchers, to give your comments and your ideas. How would you like, or how would you envision a new way of handling money, a different way, and a way which is working in relationships? What is your idea? And I really would like to bring you in. And when you give us your comments, we can bring them in the live transmission and can answer directly. So really, we invite you to do that.
And also, I want to add that after we're live now, but if you listen to the replay, do comment on this video, because that could be also a reason for another topic we do, to actually deeply answer that question for you. Because I know there's many of you out there that have these kind of situations, and if we can help you bring clarity to that by actually having a discussion about it, looking at the topic from different viewpoints, then there could be more ahas and more people who can actually solve their problems or move forward at least. So that's what is our intention with bringing in this topic of the money ogre.
Yeah, this is wonderful. Yeah, and it's really a topic we need to resolve in these times, when we want to create healthy relationships and working relationships which are satisfying. So we won't allow anymore the money come into it and be a, how do you say, as you said before, the third party which is disturbing the good relationship we have. So thank you very much, and we will see next week in our Connection Talk with Margherita from thecrystallotus.com and myself, Heidi, from thepowerofrelationship.com. See you soon.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.